Hey, ZD Radar. Hey, hola, he says. Nice to see you on the chat on this rather unusual streaming time on Monday night. AJ is already asleep, and ZD Radar made it just in time on your own train, most probably, for the stream. So great to see you, and so great to be able to stream again. Internet has stabilized over the course of the last 2 weeks or something like this. And just the moment that the internet was stable again, I got a message from Vodafone that they acknowledged that they detected an error at my connection and they will take care of that. Oh, she's appearing at the log. Yeah, maybe she logged in and then she she fell asleep, and he says no way that they actually acknowledged that there was that there was a problem with my connection to the internet. Akura, moin to you. So great of you guys to appear on Richie Rail's stream last night when we did this long run from Liverpool to London, Euston. And yeah, my bib was a bit in the night because it got delayed, as you can imagine, on the railway stream. And so I took over almost at midnight Central European time. Our friends in the UK had 1 more hour to spend here. Yeah, but it was nice. I enjoyed it a lot, even though I was extremely knackered. And, well, did not catch too much sleep. Had to work today, and now I'm back streaming. And what are we streaming? We are streaming Stuttgart Heilbronn. Our unboxing stream more or less got lost. Yeah, the good mornings in the chat was very amusing. Well, but it was a nice event. I actually really enjoyed it. I did not expect it to be so cozy and so nice. It was obviously chaos and a bit of difficult thing to organize with all the streams and restreaming. But all in all, the atmosphere and the tone was really relaxed, friendly, positive. After all this video battling going back and forth during the weeks before. So that was a nice one, and I hope we can do that again. It was nice to work together with other ambassadors, other content creators. And yeah, you guys know that I enjoy that, if not everybody's cooking their own little soup and not being able to look over the edge of your plate to what the other guys are doing. And so collaboration of this and enjoying the game together in a positive way is always great. Enjoying the game in a positive way with Stuttgart Heilbronn. Today we're talking about the Einheitslokomotiven, the standard electric locomotives, it is sometimes translated into English. But it's more than this. I have a little presentation for that, but we get to this later when we actually have driven a bit. And I think I wanted to start with the 110. What is one of the 2 Einheitslokomotiven? And there are some nice special services in the... Let's stick with the custom weather so that we don't get too much fog. We have trains with auto carrier, wagons, and passenger coaches. New looks to upcoming routes are also interesting, super interesting. CD Radar, I give you that. This announcement of the Trent Valley line totally took me by surprise. Also the announcement of the 147, the Trax 3. Spectre is not here, unfortunately, so I heard Matt say somewhere that this Trax 3 doesn't have to do anything, and not the least with the Trax 3 that has already been published before, the 187 by Skyhook. That was one of the worst received locomotives. And Spectre has still nightmares. So this will be a whole new thing. Also the German steam route that is announced, or mixed traffic route with the steam train. Super interesting stuff. I hope it works. On this route, I might have talked about this already. The Halbregelabstand has actually... Hey, Spectre, here you are. I just mentioned you. And your nightmares about the 187 locomotive, now that the 147 has been announced, and Matt assured everyone that it will be a completely new locomotive having nothing to do with the 187. Juniper checking in. Nice to have you on the stream, guys. Yeah, so there's a lot on the agenda that we have to take care of. Halbregelabstand, you might remember this. We talked about this in a video of the Frankfurt S-Bahn, this thing in the HV signaling system where the signals are closer together than 1,000 meters, and you work with the Kennlicht. And Dion, the guy from Trains in Germany, implemented it, and I heard him talk on Trains in Place stream the other day together with Lucas. And we might get to this later on, but this is a classic stroke of genius. They implemented the Halbregelabstand nicely. It works if you look at the signals on your number 9 key map, but they used signal heads that don't have a Kennlicht. So that the whole concept of the Halbregelabstand with the Kennlicht is somehow destroyed because the signals cannot actually show the Kennlicht that they are supposed to show. But this is a different story. We will get to this later, maybe. First, let's get into our 110 locomotive. And yeah, look what we have. We have cars behind us, but not only cars. After a while, there is passenger coaches. So it is an auto train where we transport the people and their cars together. I don't know if they are Volkswagens. They're actually different models sitting on there. And Spectre says, nice, 110, 112, 140, and of course the 103 are the stuff I grew up with. I have a soft spot for them. Yeah, it's actually cool that we have so many different vehicles now in Transit World. One thing, we have cars behind us. We should not use the rear pantograph because sparks on the cars make annoying lawsuits. We will use the front one. Front up. Mode R. Brake mode R if we have car carrier wagons. They typically don't have an R setting. Locomotive braking faster than the cars is also not a good situation. I would switch this to P. Panto. We are getting juice. And close it. Sifa, HZB, LZB. Lights are already on in our creased front of our 110. And yeah, I missed the starting whistle already. We should have left long ago. 80 is allowed, but the track limit I think in this siding here is lower. Yes, we have to stick to 60 until we are past the signal. Release the row. Hold the train with whistle is working. Wiper is working as well. Okay, that should do the trick. Tap changer engaging. This version of the 110 most probably already sports a thyristor tap changer. Starting program. And we are starting at Bietigheim-Bissingen, or whatever this weird name is. Bietigheim-Bissingen. CD Rider says Eindhoven. What gives the idea of Eindhoven? Fünfhoven. Bietigheim. Interesting trains of thought. We're going towards Stuttgart, but we are going to stop at Kornwestheim. Kornwestheim with the big yard. When we do stuff like this, we always have to be careful not to miss a temporary speed restriction. Yeah. What did I not say? Here is one. A temporary speed restriction. Grain West Home. Yeah. You name it. Used to be quite famous for the Bertelsmann Verlag, right? The Kornwestheim. In former times when people were actually buying books. Hollabrunn. The yard and the connecting lines around the yard and to the main line. Here is the restriction, LF2. They are actually very nice in the game. Tom. Bertelsmann in Gütersloh, yeah, they had something in Gütersloh as well, but I think they didn't they have their printing house in Kornwestheim, or was it the other way around? Somehow I always connect Kornwestheim with the Bertelsmann Verlag. A lot of nice breast-to-breast runs here with the S-Bahn. Inspector knows that Bietigheim-Bissingen was the home of the German synth-pop band Camouflage. Okay. Ah yeah, the 80s and 90s. No, I don't make this connection, but I don't doubt one bit that this is what Bietigheim-Bissingen is famous for. Our top speed is 100 because we have those car carrier wagons in our train. Typical for the Einheitslokomotiven, those scissor style pantographs. From the fact that we have two separate lamps for the red rear lights and the white front lights, we can conclude that this is not one of the first batch of 110s or a refurbished one, since the first batch had those big lamps, but only one on either side. But not the ones with the crease, right? Rather the ET then looked like... No, the crease they got later. I don't think there is a 110 that has the crease but still the old lights. We will get to this later, but according to my knowledge, the crease was first introduced with the E40.11 locos that were pimped for pulling the Rheingold. And later then the crease was picked up with the third series of the 110s. The E40, and not the E40, the E10 obviously, .3 series. Passing Ludwigsburg now, I think. Or are we still at Asbach? No, I guess this is Ludwigsburg. This looks like Ludwigsburg. Oh, here was a 90 restriction. Ludwig who? Ludwigsburg. Mr. Spurg. Ludwig's Castle. Louis Castle. Snake biters! I've watched loads of your streams but never managed to catch a live one until now. So nice to have you on the stream. I hope you had fun yesterday on Richie Rail's stream. Oops, there is already a VR2. From Louisville to Meergarten. Meergarten. Stuttgarten. Yeah, well. That is weird. Yeah, that was epic, Snakebiter says, and even managed to complete it. So I bet Richie was really happy despite the teething issues at first. Yeah. Well, I would not have dared sending this through my Wi-Fi. Paul's Super HD stream coming in and his own stream going out. And LWD Adnane is raiding with a party of 4. You're so welcome, guys. Fellow ambassador. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. First time chat. Yes. Gotta make sure I get my train to stop properly here at Kornwestheim. Have a great stream, my man, he says. Thank you so much. The plan actually is to stop here at Kornwestheim, detach our train, the cars and the passenger coaches, and then a 363 will come and pick up a batch of the car carrier, the auto-rack wagons. ASR2, is that a Porsche reference? Did we reference Porsche, Spectre? Cars coming from Stuttgart. Ah, I see. No, I think the reference is to a train that actually existed, and that is one of the trains where you can travel on and have your car loaded up on special wagons, so that you have your car at the destination again. So a mixed car and passenger train. You usually have a very special, fast-running car carrier wagons for that, but in the game here, I think they substituted them with the Liveries wagons that we have. Slowing down the whole consist, obviously. The screen is cropped at the right side. No, I actually do not know. Is that something that everybody is experiencing? Let's go to full service since we are losing our cars. So let me see. I usually don't watch my own stream because that somehow impedes the FPS. Just a touch, it cuts at the A of the action points. It is true. I can see it now. I think I know why that is. But maybe we can fix it. It is weird still. Now you should have the full screen again. And I can detach my cars. It's just a touch, it cuts at the air. Bible. Thump. I may have to start calling myself technical support as I report all the bugs from the streams. Yeah, that's a great thing to do. It is sometimes when I switch on my second screen and the game is already running, then sometimes the ratio changes slightly, and that can result in things like this. And I just tweaked it on the OBS. Yep, that works. Do you want to give up? No. Heck no! We have to move our loco out of the way so that the 363 can come and pick up the cars. Actually, don't really know if I can switch on the Schluss signal in a situation like this. When I'm leaving behind cars in a station, I probably can. I just changed to being a shunting service. Not immediately apparent, because we're getting shown a Kennlicht. The signal here actually can show a Kennlicht. We need to be slow because we have a restricted 500 Hertz monitoring going on. So we can't go faster than 20 until we pass the signal. With a Kennlicht on, you should not be required to push the override key. Yes, 2000 Hertz was not active. 500 Hertz lamp extinguished. That means we have a restricted 1000 Hertz going on. That allows us to accelerate to 40 according to PZB, but since we switched to be a shunting service, we can't go faster than 25. The upside of being a shunting service, though, is that we can pass this signal here that we are approaching without having to stop in front of it. But now we need our Befehl 40, the override key. White lamp for the Befehl 40 actually comes on. And as a shunting service, we can pass signals of that kind. It's a bit weird in this DLC that for some of the empty coach moves. So, and why is my FPS now so bad? Is that because I opened my own Twitch stream? It wasn't so bad when we were actually running fast. Here is the 363 already waiting to pick up the cars. Okay. That's the service here. And the whole story will go into the second chapter in 9 minutes, and you can already see how the little 363 is going to pick up the cars. Unfortunately, the game is running so slowly now that we cannot really watch the 363 pick up my car carrier wagons. Nah. I thought we can wait for that, but we won't. I will load it again and hope that I have a better FPS. And those moves are extremely nice spec. I love it, for example, on West Coast Mainline Shap at Lancaster, where they exchange diesel for electro, etc. Ah, I've never watched this. But yeah, you're right. It's super nice if you arrive at a station and then actually the AI trains are interacting with you in your train. Apparently saving and loading from the save sorts the FPS until it happens again eventually, and you have to do it again, yeah. Well, we just load the second part of the service, I think, and then we hope we are probably good. Stay with the custom weather. A bit of wetness, a bit of wind, some clouds, and get started. So we will be back where we left the game, like a couple of minutes later. Drive this service from Kornwestheim to Stuttgart. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh yeah, we are already back. Set back. We skipped that little service where we just reset the locomotive back to the train. Here you can see our nice little... It's a 363, not a 365. And those are our cars that the little one took. And we are getting the people to Stuttgart, and then they can hike back and pick up their cars at Kornwestheim. Get the train running. Now we can actually use the R brake mode since we only have the IC coaches. Rear up is alright. You're only allowed to travel with a silver car, yeah. In the year 2000, every pensioner was required to have a silver car. You couldn't have any other color. At least not as a pensioner. Let's have some blowers so that those lights here come off. And now we should actually be allowed to go a bit faster than the 100 tops that we had before. I wonder if we still have to open the door. No, we don't. We're just starting right away. If you're wondering why I'm approaching a red signal here, I'm just role-playing that the dispatcher allowed us to approach the red signal as a shunting service. They can do that. What is a bit of a weird situation, because now we are actually shunting with passengers on board. I think you have to announce this to your passengers that we are shunting now. And now we will transition back into being a passenger service, a train service. No shunting service anymore. But we have to acknowledge the VR0 getting a new 1000 Hertz, limiting us to 40 since it is a restricted. As if they care, the passengers. CD Radar, do you have to announce your passengers that you are shunting instead of running the service normally? Or know what that means? Yes. But it is in the rules somewhere that if you have people on your vehicle and you're shunting, then you have to inform everybody that you are shunting. The restriction was removed. What is the difference for the passengers? They do not have to do anything, no. But they need to know. Oh, maybe I should not have accelerated beyond the 40. Let's see what the switches are here. Yeah. It's a 40 switch. I should have heated the HP2 properly. Different to a plane where people have to keep seat belts off during refuel. Oh yeah, that's an interesting thought. For mid-air refuel. Now in case they have to evacuate. Soonish. So we're still in a normal 1000 Hertz. Well, we can release from that. Since we can see that the next signal is green, allowing us to go faster than 30. And the yellow lamp is off. So that was an allowed release. Passing through this extremely nice junction area here. Before we get to Zuffenhausen. Inspector says, as a student I once participated in those ground evacuation tests. Do not remember how much we got paid, but it was cool. Oh yeah, I can see that. So did you have to evacuate a couple of times in a row, or what did you do actually? Zuffenhausen, Stuttgart-Zuffenhausen here is a cool station. You have this blue platform on this ramp that goes to Weil der Stadt. With the S-Bahn coming down, and you can play S-Bahn services going up there and stopping there. Cool route, a really cool route. If there wasn't this shot in the own foot with the Halbregelabstand. And with the empty coach moves. It was for certification, Spectre says. Okay, slow down. So those side-by-side movements with the S-Bahn trains, they are really great. And they happen a lot while you're playing this game, this DLC. And you always wonder how late the AI drivers brake with their 423 trains. The plane was full and all people had to get out in a certain time period. Yep. Türfreigabe, City Radar, you name it. This funny high-pitched beep is for the Türfreigabe. Typically get it as soon as your speed drops below 30, I think. Evanvor, the raccoon with the angel wings. Nice to have you back. I mean, this is one way to do a tunnel. Well, you're a tunnel expert, CD Radar. Look at those passenger ramps here at Stuttgart-Feuerbach. Didn't actually try to step on them as a passenger or on foot. Don't know if you can walk up this ramp. Looks tempting at any rate. Meergarden, Fire Creek, Spectre is translating everything into English. I wonder how you translate Zuffenhausen. You could drive your Porsche directly to the train on those ramps through. Zuffenhausen cannot be translated. So here on this bit of track between Feuerbach and Stuttgart, especially Stuttgart Tief, you have a working Halbregelabstand, but signals that cannot show a Kennlicht. And Snakebite just asks me if I have a rail driver controller. They are brilliant. I've never looked back, and I still have the old one. I might get the new one day if I'm ever feeling rich. No, I don't have one of those. I'm using my keyboard and I'm actually really happy with it. I always felt that the design of the rail driver distracts you of the different cabs. Might not be true. So we have to slow down to 40 for the next signal. HP2. Now spectators, do we get via under Turkish home as well, unter Türkheim? Don't think so, to be honest. And Snakebiter says, yeah, that's true. It's designed to be generic to work with all trains, so it won't be true to life. You need a full train sim for that. Like they have at the real training centers. One of those would be cool though, yeah. And then you need one for every train in the game. One thing I want to point out, here you have a drop to 30. That is not signaled. The signals are there, but they are not showing the ZS3, Kennziffer 3. That is required to slow you down to 30. But at least you can use those signals as markers that you have to slow down to 30 at those points. To the right, the ramp for the S-Bahn tracks. We're coming in on the fast tracks. There's a nice 218 diesel locomotive sitting about, waiting to be put to service. And yeah, you say that will become a mess very fast unless you only ever drive one train forever. That is the point. We already have a 500 Hertz monitoring going on. I think I already passed the point where we had to slow down to 30. Yes. It is. You can see the isolated. See if I can show you without the train exploding. Here they are. The pair of isolated ZS3. Indicators that reduce the speed from 40 to 30. NCD Radar says, when I was at school we had 3 full cab simulators. Now when I went there for a visit they have 9. They are preparing for metro rivals. And then they race each other. 9 versus a 9 up challenge. Through Prague Metro. They are actually for everything. Trains, metro, trams, even buses. Well, that is cool. Zugdeckungssignal showing Kennlicht All the signals can show Kennlicht, only the signals that are supposed to show the Kennlicht for the Halbregelabstand, they can't do it. So, we're actually much too early. Don't know how we managed to be so early. Inspector is asking if we can upload Gran Turismo in the simulators as well. Alright, people, we have arrived at Stuttgart. Oh, I don't even have to open the doors. Ah, alright. The service... Okay, that was the end of the announcement. The service structure here is a bit weird. You don't even have to open the doors. The unload passenger thing is running. And it will probably run until 9:48, but is the scheduled arrival time. So, if you're playing this for real and want the reward for completing the service, then you would probably just have it running until it is done. Good thing is that we have a presentation to do, so we can have it run in the background. And Neither says, you want to play Gran Turismo on giant bus wheels? Yes. That's part of the challenge. Inspector says. Alright, let's find my presentation. I should remember switch off the presentation first, and you don't always get my messy loading in screens. So, Einheitslokomotiven of the Deutsche Bundesbahn. What is that? What is an Einheitslokomotive? Well, it does not have to do anything with the Deutsche Einheit. Quite the contrary, it was from the time when there was no Deutsche Einheit, no German reunification. But after World War II, Germany was divided into two parts. The eastern part and the western part. The Federal Republic of Germany and the German Democratic Republic. And after the war, there was still some railway stuff going on, but everything had to be reconstructed, obviously. In the south, they had still some installations for overhead catenary and stuff to run electric trains. So that was actually something that was picked up not too long after the war, but in terms of rolling stock, what was around is especially those two locomotives, the E94, the German Crocodile, that we know from a DLC that came out like half a year ago from TSG. Beautiful locomotive. Before that we had it in the Austrian variant in the Mittenwaldbahn. Heavy locomotive, 6 axles. And the downside for the driver was that they had to stand all the way. And this was not because people were too cheap to buy him a chair, but it was by design to keep the driver alert. And push your deadman button, and as soon as the driver collapses, he would fall down and no longer push the button. And the thinking was that if the driver can sit down, then they are more prone to fall asleep than while standing. Problem was that you had to retire your drivers early because their knees were broken after a while. So the thinking changed, and we thought, well, let's develop a SIFA that takes care of the vigilance problem. and then we can actually save our drivers' knees and have the drivers around for longer. And so the E94, what was to be the Baureihe 194 after 1968, when the great renumbering happened, is one of the last generation of locomotives where the driver had to stand. There were some locomotives where the driver was able to sit down, especially high-speed locomotives, but those locomotives that were around in scores, driver had to stand. And the E44 that is not in the game is a smaller variant of the Crocodile with only 4 axles, and but with the same layout more or less. Snakebiter says, is it possible to drive the German routes on trains in world without knowing a single word of German? As in my case, it is totally possible. Positive and perfectly. Well, close to perfectly, I should say. You don't need to do the announcements, especially not on the Dresden-Leipzig route. And I think it is totally possible to do that, even without the German. We will possibly be able to drive the Tadami line without really mastering the Japanese until then. Yeah, and then in the years after the war, around 1950, people collected their thoughts and said, well, let's have 2 locomotives that more or less be the successors to those 2 locomotives. One 4-axle locomotive and one 6-axle locomotive for the heavy freight. And Snakebiter says, I imagine I'll pick up the station names as well as I drive it. Yeah, you do that. You do that. The station names, they are sometimes weird. Sometimes there are spelling mistakes in the game. Oh yeah, will you be doing a stream on the Tadami line? Of course I will. It will look so pretty, that route, about Japanese signaling, about the safety systems. If I can figure something out, I'm looking forward to that already. Same goes for the Czech. Same goes for the Portuguese. Absolutely. I mean, what English word do we need on British maps? That is true. AWS, beeps and boops in universal language. So, they ordered 5 test locomotives at different manufacturers, and then they tested them. And so they saw, actually, we need a more variety in our rolling stock. We cannot just have one locomotive that fits for all. The idea obviously was a very good one, to have locomotives that can share their parts, so that you don't have to have every part on every locomotive in stock, but that you can use parts and things on your different locomotives. And the more unique and the more common those parts and groups are, the easier it is to maintain. A thinking that got lost in the last decades. Now people who are in train maintenance often complain that they need more or less a special maintenance facility for every type of train or every version of train to be able to do the basic maintenance. And if there is a specific problem, you have to order the guy from the manufacturer who has the proper version of the error reading tool to actually be able to do something right. And so it was a really good idea to keep it simple and to keep it interchangeable, so that you don't need that many different tools and supplies and maintenance crews and stuff. Nevertheless, they realized that they can't do with 2 locomotives, so they decided they would go for a bit of a wider variety and actually start with 4 to 5 locomotives. Inspector says, luckily the parts on the 187 and the 147 are interchangeable. You can save for 147 by butchering 187. Yeah, that's On the locomotives, actually, we had a bit of a return of that, right? The trucks lines and the Vectron. Vectron is more or less a universal locomotive now that you can almost use for everything. Obviously, it can be customized for your purposes, but it is pretty much a jack of all trades. But with the EMUs, it is really a mess because every train requires its own maintenance facility and crew and so on. And Snakebiter says, I'm not sure I'd have got out of the siding safely without your videos and presentations. Well, a good thing to hear that. But it is all manageable, and Akura is looking forward to the Tadami line. Yeah, I'm still looking forward to that. But what did they do in 1952? They decided, let's have 4 different locomotives actually. One for the Fernverkehr, what is, well, I translated with express passenger, what is the mid-range thing, not the high-speed range, but not the commuter thing. Normal freight and heavy freight. And for those 4 things, we want to have specific locomotives. And the one for the express passenger at the time called the Schnellzug-Lokomotive, compared to the speeds that Schnellzug express trains were running at, would be the E10, later then renamed to the Baureihe 110, what we are sitting on at the moment. And the E10.0 were the test locomotives, and then those locomotives E10.1 were the one manufactured as a series and sold in greater numbers. And at the same time, the 6-axle variant will be the E50, what ended up being the Baureihe 150 later. Why 6 axles and 4 axles? Obviously, it is a thing of distributing the mass of your locomotive on more points so that not so much mass is pushing on the tracks. 6-axle locomotive can be heavier. Heavier locomotive can typically be more powerful and can pull heavier trains. And yeah, so this is why 6 axles and 4 axles. Typically, it turned out that most things can be done with 4 axles nowadays, and you don't need those heavy beasts that run on 6 axles or even more, as in former times. We would have tap changer locomotives, and we would have driving motors on our axles that would take one phase AC or DC current, depending on what we send in, but more or less with the same working principle. Motors with a commutator with brushes. We are not in the time yet where we have 3-phase AC Drehstrommotoren, but it is the classic 1-phase AC or DC traction time throughout all those locomotives. And so we have those tap changers, we have those quotation marks steering wheels where we select what tap our locomotive is supposed to run on, and then you have some sort of a device that is going through the taps one by one to increase the load that we send on our driving motors. There is a video about the 110 where we go into the tap changing principles. We have a video about the British Class 87 in the pre-thyristor time for those tap changing devices. And most of those Einheitslokomotiven started with a non-thyristor switching apparatus, tap changing apparatus, but got thyristor Schaltwerke, thyristor tap changers in the newer series. And all of them, except for the 141 that we get to, are switching on the high voltage side. High voltage, low amperage. Yeah. For the freight service, they designed the E40, what turned out to be the Baureihe 140, what is introduced to the game new in the Stuttgart Heilbronn DLC. And for the Nahverkehr, a little bit later than the others, they designed the E41, what turned out the iconic Baureihe 141. What makes it so special, we will get to this later, but, well, the pre-runner of everything was the E10, the Baureihe 110, and then they were thinking of a fifth one in those Einheitslokomotiven thing for the really high-speed passenger services, Schnellverkehr, what was discussed to be the E01, but that was never designed and never built, so the number E01 was free for the Baureihe 101. That returned then a couple of decades later when the three-phase AC locomotives were up and running. Some spin-offs also were built. The not so famous locomotives that they built so that they can go to France especially, or to Switzerland, the E320 and the E344, that ended up being reclassified in 1968 as the Baureihe 182, not to be confused with the modern Baureihe 182, what is the Siemens Eurosprinter that we know from the Rapid Transit, and as the Dispolok, for example, and the Baureihe 183. And in the 1960s, they had those really flashy, fast trains that was called the Rheingold Express, and they built special coaches for that, and then they needed some locomotives to pull those flashy trains. And so they built a specific version of the E10, the E10.12. It looks like it is already the 12th variant of the E10, but it is not so. It expresses that instead of only 3 numbers behind the dot, this one had 4 numbers behind the dot, with the first one being a 1. So classifying this as a special high-speed locomotives. They got special running gear, special bogies to pull the Rheingold wagon, and to be the Rheingold Express. Later they were reclassified into the Baureihe 112, what is a bit confusing again, because we know the Baureihe 112 in the game as a pinned-up version of the 143, the locomotives that came in after the reunification from the Deutsche Reichsbahn. But in the 50s and 60s, or the 60s actually, and later, or sometimes later, this batch of the 110s was reclassified as Baureihe 112. And those Rheingold locomotives first had this bend in the front that we know from our locomotive. Let's take the presentation out of the picture to look at it properly. Here. This crease, it's called a crease, a Bügelfalte, like the crease on your suit trousers, if you like to wear them that way. And this first originated in one of the first Rheingold locomotives, and later then was used on the third batch of E10s. But before we get to that, there was a second batch of the E10s, and the change between the first batch and the second batch was actually especially that. So is the presentation again here. The first batch had a big round lamp left and right at the front, and with the second batch this was switched to this setup of a white lamp below and a red lamp above, just like we see that in the game now. The third batch then, same lighting, and it picked up the keys. What did I do? Heavens. Crease, there is an R missing. There is an R missing. Nah, so it does not work like this. Ansicht. It works like this. So, back to our creases. Nobody saw anything. Crease, the Bügelfalte, is back again. And yeah, that was the Baureihe 110 SDE10 with the crease, famous for the Rheingold and being the, well, go-to express passenger locomotive at the time. Naseru's City Raider. What did they do with Naseru? Well, talking about the 140 that we have in the game now, it is special because it is the only one of those locomotives depicted here that does not have a dynamic brake for whatever reason. The E51, also considered to be an Einheitslokomotive, it is a successor to the 150. I don't think that it is, strictly speaking, an Einheitslokomotive. I have it on my presentation as the successor to the E50. But technically, I don't think it is considered an Einheitslokomotive. Just like the 111 is the successor to the 110 and not being an Einheitslokomotive. Though, of course, it looks like the 182 from the front. Yeah, going back to the 140, it does not have a dynamic brake. What is important, if you drive the 140 in the game, you will have to rely on your train brake alone. It is only a pneumatic brake and no dynamic brake. And what makes things worse, it is on the locomotive at least a single release brake, not a multi-release brake like on the other locomotives of that class of this era. So what is the special thing about a single release brake? As soon as you move your brake handle backwards, so not increasing the brake pressure but releasing it, you cannot release it gradually. Instead, as soon as you move it back to release, even if you're not going all the way to release, you will initiate releasing the brake pipe pressure from your brake cylinders. If you have a train with wagons that have multiple release brake valves, then you won't really feel that, but you can see it on your brake gauges in the 140, and we will drive a service on the 140, that it releases all the pressure from the brake cylinders as soon as you move the brake handle back towards release already. So no dynamic brake, single release. That is a more simplified layout for your locomotive as compared to the others. And why would we want to have different versions here? Is especially the ratios and the driving motors that are a bit different for express passenger trains and for freight trains that need to be able to pull with a bit more torque for longer times as compared to the passenger trains. But then in some situations they wanted to have a dynamic brake on the 140, and so they built a version of the 140 that has a dynamic brake, and this got to be the E40.11, later being renamed into the Baureihe 139. So the Baureihe 139 is essentially a Baureihe 140 with a dynamic brake. In 68 was the big renumbering. We lost the E numbers and got the Baureihe numbers, so that the last batch of the 140 that was built in the early 70s does not have an E number anymore, but only the Baureihe 140 and then .8. What was the last batch? And the last batch of the 140 actually got, in, unlike the first batches or the batches before, the ability to run a push-pull train and to use double traction. So dual unit, not multiple only 2 locomotives paired together, and there are services in Stuttgart Heilbronn that make use of that, and this shows us that the version that got implemented in the game is a late version of the 140. We can also see that the buffers are rectangular, not round, like circular, like on the 110, and this is something that only got to be in 1983. Before that, also the 140 had round circular buffers. Yeah, bust my buffers. And those are high performance buffers with this rectangular plate. The 140s in 1993, you can read that they got to their normal headlamps high beam headlamps. Before that, locomotives did not really have high beams, and the version that we have in the game does not have high beams from what I can see. So this is a locomotive in between here with push-pull facility and with double traction ability and the high performance rectangular buffers, but no headlights. What is the specific of the Baureihe 141? It has, unlike all the other locomotives here, a low voltage tap changer. So if you think back to the video about tap changer, how that works with a transformer, you can either do the tap changing on the high voltage side of your transformer, or you can do it on the low voltage side. It always sounds less spectacular if you do it on the low voltage side. The downside is that the current, the amperage that you are actually switching is higher if you switch on the low voltage side. And this is why you typically go for switching on the high voltage side to have lower currents and lower amperages. Here you have a low voltage tap changer that is also arranged in a circular pattern. What is a more classic way of doing it, no thyristor switching, and this is responsible for the sometimes spectacular and cracky unique sound of the 141 that sometimes pops and cracks when switching around. And some people love that. We can't hear it in the game because it is not yet in the game, but a lot of people are actually mooning for a Baureihe 141 to have it in the game. Being a commuter passenger locomotive from day one, it was able to do push-pull services. First, all of the 141 can do the conventional push-pull train control, the konventionelle Wendezugsteuerung, and later versions in the end also got the Zeitmultiplexe Wendezugsteuerung, the time divided multiplexing control for push-pull trains, and in the end they were also used as S-Bahn locomotives at Nuremberg, for example, the 141s. They are not longer around. In 1974 was the end for building those locomotives, because then the successors appeared, the 111 for the Baureihe 110 and 151 as the successor to the 150. Those locomotives are still one-phase AC motor locomotives, but from what you can read, they are not considered Einheitslokomotiven anymore. Yeah, before those were replaced then by the three-phase AC Drehstromlokomotiven of the modern type, the Vectron and the Traxxas, and the Eurosprinters before that, and before that the 152 or the 120 and the 101 or the 145 that we are getting as an expert mode sometime next year. So this, the 111 and 151, is the last generation of classic tap changing one-phase AC electric locomotives. The liveries changed. In former times, you had this division between express locomotives being like blue and freight locomotives being in this dark olive green color, typically from start. Rheingold locomotives had a special livery. Later then you had this ocean blue and beige or ivory livery in 87. Then you got this orient red, this dark red with the white applications at the nose that was called the Lätzchen, a bib. And 97 introduced the Verkehrsrot, the traffic red that we have now everywhere. The Rheingold locos were later in 88 reclassified as Baureihe 114. Again, confusing because 112, 114 we always connect with the pimped versions of the 143 locomotives that are in the game. I think the 112 came in on Hamburg-Lübeck and the 114 came in Frankfurt-Fulda, right? That was the first time the 114 appeared. And a different batch of the Rheingold locomotives was in 91 reclassified as 113, making room to put the pimped versions of the 143s as 112s. At some point, the 114 must have been released. And quite late in 2006, there was this idea of having a company called DB Autozug, something connected that we have here in the DLC, where you put your car on a special wagon in the train and can travel in the passenger compartment while your car is taken with you. There was an idea around that time, and they reclassified a bunch of the 110s as Baureihe 115 that were used for this Autozug. So this is more or less my map so that we can find all the Baureihen and loco types. Obviously, there were always special variants with special abilities and special liveries and everything, but so we can more or less put our locomotives that we have in their place, and we can see what is connected with what and what is special in what way. Number-wise, the 110 is actually not the locomotive with the most units built. You can read that 379 units were built all across the board, whereas the 141 already 451 versions were built or units were built. The 140 is the one that is by far the locomotive type with the most units built, 879, almost 1,000 units of this locomotive built, and the heavy one with the 6 axles, obviously the least prevalent of those 4. What do we have in the game? Nicely enough, we have the old crocodile, the Baureihe 194 or the E94 in the Rail Tour version, thanks to TSG. And we can use this one if we want to ruin our knees and stand all the time while driving. We can do this. Then we have the 110. I think it is a 110.3 modern version, already with the traffic red, small bibs from Bremen-Oldenburg. That is also in the Stuttgart Heilbronn with some services like we started the stream with. Now, new Stuttgart Heilbronn brings us the 140. I think it is the 140.8 actually, because it can do push-pull and it can do double traction, and it has those rectangular high-performance buffers. It still does not have a dynamic brake. It still does only have a single release brake. So it is not a Baureihe 139. What we also have is the 111 in different versions, and also in an oldish version from the Mittenwaldbahn with a different safety system setup. So, quite nice, but there is also a lot that we can still hope for, especially the 141 would be a nice addition, since it is technically the most unique, I think, of the whole batch of Einheitslokomotiven with the low voltage tap changer. I'm not sure if we have a low voltage tap changer. The two British tap changer locomotives, the 87 and the 86, are high voltage tap changer locomotives, if I'm not mistaken. What the E94 does, I'm actually not sure. Maybe this is a low voltage tap changer. At any rate, it will be using the circular tap changer. But I'm not sure. I should have checked this out. Anyway, people love the 148. It has been around for quite long. It has been very prevalent and pulling S-Bahn trains. Trains are said on the stream the other day, but I cannot live without the 141. Maybe we will get it at some time. Thanks for staying with me in the presentation. We can go back to the game. Let's see if we can finally end this service here by closing our doors. Can't even lock the doors anymore. Oh yeah, it is locking. But it is very, very slow. Alright. Back to the main menu. And now let's run a double-headed 140 service from Heilbronn to, yeah, not to Stuttgart, because those freight services don't go all the way to Stuttgart, but to Kornwestheim Yard, most probably. Yeah, to the trains. Choose a route. Stuttgart Heilbronn. And the 104. Here you can see all the brothers, the 110. Bremen-Oldenburg is layering in the 111. You cannot drive the old version from Mittenwaldbahn here. Diesel is obviously something else. And the 140. Why there are two versions, I cannot really tell you. And now we need something from Heilbronn. I would prefer Heilbronn to Kornwestheim. Let's check 19. Let's see if that is a double-header service. I should have picked one before, because now I don't know what actually is a double-header service here and what not. If it is not a double-header service, then we will not drive a double-header service. We'll just do what we have there. But the double-heading works. You can also use the external cameras to change the brake setup on the second locomotive. What you typically have to do is to switch to the front pantograph in the leading one. Oh no, this is only a light loco. I did not want to do a light loco move. Or do I have to pick up my... Do I have to pick up my train, or am I supposed to... run a light loco move here? That was a bit sad that you cannot see in the selection what your service will be about. Maybe we have to pick up the cars first. Let's see what we can look into this. Oh yeah, we're picking up the loco. It's nice. We will pick them up. But that means at the same time, we will probably have to switch our brake mode. Interesting enough is that the 140 does not have a brake mode R in its control valve on the locomotive. Can already switch to PZB mode M, I guess. Our lamps are on. So we have light at the back. I want light at the back. We will switch it off later again. Even if it is not strictly necessary when shunting, I guess. But guys, what happened to my poor game? I will restart it. I broke something performance-wise when we were fiddling about with something. So we load in again new. Yes, this is time for talking about any plans for Christmas, CD Radar. Yeah. We do what we do every Christmas. We visit my parents. Have a nice meal. On Christmas Day, I have to take care of the horses. And for New Year's Eve, we go hiding with the remaining dog from the fireworks. Do you have to wait to work on Christmas, CD Radar? Fireworks are terrible for the dog suspector, yeah. I hope it will go smoothly. Yeah, so we hope. Actually, since for 3 years now, the third year now, we are actually hiding in a place where there are no fireworks or not that much fireworks. When my late Chili was still alive, she was always extremely scared. It was such a brave dog, but fireworks scared the hell out of her. And now we keep that up, this tradition. He's so sweet. We hide in the cellar. Yeah, he hides in the cellar with their little one. Yeah, the thing is, we're in a flat on the fifth floor, and this is just the elevation where all the crackers and rockets explode. So we're typically in the midst of everything. So we decided not to do this and go hiding in Belgium. So, game. I hope this improved things. second try, Kornwestheim to Heilbronn. We can do it the other way around if you want. Kornwestheim Personenbahnhof. No, I want the yard. Heilbronn. Kornwestheim. Well, let's take that one. Custom weather in June, so that we have enough light and no precipitation. Why did I turn on the precipitation last time? I actually wanted only wetness and some clouds. Yeah, this is the double header. 33 cars. That looks definitely like a double header. 1200 tons. That means with a double header we are actually below the threshold for a light loco. 600 meters. No, we're not a double header. We're just a long train. Then we're not double heading, then we are running it like this, but then we have actually to build a long loco formation. And might actually have to run it in PCBU. No, we're running it in PCBM. Brake mode G. Already releasing the brakes, keeping the train in place with the direct brake. Horn works, master instrument lights are on. Can already go forward since we don't have any passengers. CIFA is still off. Also is the PZB. We don't have any LZB on the 140 end. You can see the handle is missing. We don't have an electric brake. Getting started at HP2. And well, let's get ourselves a long loco formation. First 5 vehicles need to be switched to G. Unfortunately I can't because this is an old Shims 2 wagon that does not have a working brake selector. I think it is that one wagon from Rursig Nord that made it necessary to load all the assets from Rursig Nord into this DLC. Empty. Okay, that is a long loco formation. Let's say the second wagon actually got switched to G. But it also means we really have to brake hard when we run into anything that we have to brake for. Can't release because we're getting a new 1000 Hertz. Here's the table, by the way, that tells you how much traction force you can apply for how long. 3.7 is no problem. You can do that endlessly. 6 only for 15 minutes and 7 only for 5 minutes. And here those dials tell you how much Zugkraft, how much traction effort you're pitching in at the moment, and you can see when I'm switching the tabs, it increases. And it is no problem to go up to the 7. Problem is that you might blow the safety. It's one of the weird situations where you get 2 distant signals in a row without a main signal in between. Yeah. At least my frame rate recovered. It was a good thing to reload the game. We're still in the restricted 1000 Hertz. Can't accelerate beyond the 40, but the signals wouldn't let us anyway. And we are passing through Heilbronn, Hauptbahnhof. Coming from the yard. Here. Now passing through the Güterbahnhof. That's only a high protection signal. So, another HP2, but already with a VR0. That means as soon as we're out of the weichen Bereich, we can accelerate to line speed. I always enjoy this crisscrossing through the tracks when going out of a station or passing through a station. And if the routes are set properly, the signals should actually keep you slow enough so that you don't have to worry about track speed limits. Don't know if we are already out of the Weichenbereich. Let's play it safe and go until we pass the next main signal. With our full train, then we should be good. Train is about 600 meters long. That means 3 hectometric boards have to pass until we can accelerate. $50 and 2. $50 and 0. 49 and 8 is missing somehow. No, it's not missing, it's just further away. So I think now we're good. 49 and 6. Now we can pump it up. Snakebiters, I can't remember what country it's in. Now somewhere in Europe, but that route that takes you up the edges of the mountains looks cool and scary at the same time. Are you talking about the Arosa line in Switzerland, for example? Or the Bernina line, also in Switzerland, starting in Italy? 2 routes that we will be driving next Sunday for the end of the year stream. Inspector, rest assured, I will not pick a service with the jingle. So no jingling Christmas car. It was Switzerland, he thinks. There's another one that does that, though. I might get that one too. Yeah. Those are super iconic routes, both. It's only a bit sad that Rivet kinda stopped getting the flaws out of the safety systems and the signaling were. I always love to go back to those routes, especially for the end of the year stream. While we are driving from Heilbronn south towards Lauffen am Neckar, with the vineyards. Bernina extension to St. Moritz would be great too. So I actually expected Spectre to say something like walking along the Neckar River. Oops. Neckar. You've been translating all all the station names. That was the Wittenberger Kopf. Powered by a 111. Yeah, the vineyards that I was talking about. To the right. Driving those freight services can actually get you into a lull, and then all of a sudden you get a signal or an unannounced temporary speed restriction, and then plonk. You need to be wary. Is that? No, this is only a limit. To 110, this does not phase us at all, because we can't go faster than 100. This is another thing that I want to be changed in the game, that all the German freight services are limited to 100, and there is no distinction between services that can go 100 and services that can go 120, services that can go 110, for example. On the 140, this is not a big thing because we have 110 tops, we can't go 120 anyway. But still, we could accelerate to 110 here. And this always brings more dynamic into the gameplay. Yeah, that is wild 100 only, Spectre says. This is one of the things how it happens. I remember a time when all the freight services were racing around with 160. And people said this is totally illegal. And not how it is supposed to be. Freight trains can't go 160. And then they limited all the freight trains to 100. Overshooting the mark completely. Had they limited all the freight trains to 120, then we can, well, role play and stick to the 100 on the trains that are supposed to stick to the 100. But this way around we can do it, but then we always get docked for it. What is not so super bad, but a bit annoying anyway. Here's a 90 restriction next to this part of the Neckar that is almost like a lake. Speed limit increased again here, so as soon as the train has passed we can accelerate beyond the 90 again. What's the name of that station here? I don't know. Oh, this is Lauffen am Neckar, and the other thing was a different station. Note how this locomotive actually has a window to the engine room. Earlier versions of the 140 used to have more than one window per side. But then those windows got replaced by additional coolers and cooler fans. While the 111 does not have a window of that kind. Down to 110 again. Kara, are you well? Don't worry, we will go around the corner as soon as I have taken this train to the yard at Kornwestheim. Tunnel. Gary, you have to wait a bit. I can't give you a treat now. Come here. Next station announced. So where are we here? Kirchheim am Neckar. And here is our much anticipated temporary speed restriction. Single release brake. PZB M, requiring us to slow down below the 65. Let's see how badly I overdid it. Church home on the Neckar. Yes, thank you, Spectre. The thing is, you need quite a lot of brakes to make it in time below the 65 for the PZBM. But then you want to release your brakes again, so that you don't lose so much speed and momentum. The next Wittenberger Kopf. Actually cool that they have the Wittenberger Steuerwagen now in the game. People like to call it the Vico. I always wondered why they didn't do it with the Karlsruher Kopf that we have since Bremen-Oldenburg. Nobody is calling that the Kako. I wonder why. Why is the name of that river censored? Is it just on my device? Was it censored? I did not pay attention. So we have to get this train on speed again after this temporary speed restriction. Let's check where we are here. Walheim in Württemberg. Automod caught it and I had... I see. Some weird meaning of Neckar. German geographic names may be offensive, yeah. Maybe the government of Baden-Württemberg is charging a fee for using the names of their rivers. I would not put that beyond them. So, where are we here? At Ausgang? That's probably not correct. Bietigheim. No, I did not pay attention whether the 90 ended. Yes, indeed. Ausgang Hauptbahnhof. So at Bietigheim-Bissingen we will probably be slowed down to 80 or something like this, because the whole station does not allow passing faster than that. But until we get there, we can easily accelerate a bit. You can see even in the numbering that we have a batch or a locomotive of the last batch of the 140s. (140.8). For a second I thought we were getting the next temporary speed restriction. But we're actually going full throttle and the train is holding us back. We're really having a heavy train to pull here. Should have taken the Baureihe 150 instead. Or a E44. Maybe that. Here is the announced slowdown to 80. Luckily we're not getting getting 1000 hertz, so we don't have to slow down below the 65. We're doing it anyway. One thing that I want to point out, what I really find cool on the 140, is that this gauge here for the Füllstoß, look at that. That was the wrong button, sorry. It actually works. It tells you how much you are overcharging your brake system. Never seen that work on it on any locomotive before. Zeitbehälter, I think that is. But we got a VR0, didn't we? That means as a PZBM train we have to slow down to 45 and 30 for the 500 hertz. Means with 30 we are good. Look at this little 363. So, having passed the go via point, also our signal changed. We still have a running 1000 hertz, but not restricted. And we can actually release. We overdid it here. Now we've got slipping wheels. with the traction effort indications between the three groups of driving engines differ too much, and this is an indication that your wheels are slipping, at least some of them. And if the speed clock jumps to unreasonable heights, then this is also an indication that you are in Schleuderrahmen. So, going through the switches, and as soon as we have passed this spot with our train, we can accelerate again beyond the 80. Not this is too difficult to not accelerate beyond the 80 because we are much too slow for that. Kara, I know you want out, but you have to wait until I am at Kornwestheim. Tom. Ludwigsburg is still in between us. So I think the 140 is one of the locomotives that really feel legit when driving it in the game. Obviously I can't say if it is the same feeling as driving it in real life, since I have never come close to one of those locomotives in real life. But it is definitely a cozy feeling. Asperg. Two trains coming from the opposite direction at the same time. At this point we are passing underneath the Bundesautobahn B81, I think is the number. Well, probably not at this point, but as soon as we have cleared the Asperg area. I think this is the spot with the Bundesautobahn B81 that you have to travel along if you want to go from Heilbronn towards Stuttgart Flughafen and Messe. And now approaching Ludwigsburg. Inspector says there's one really bad piece of track on the A81, or at least there was. Without a warning, the surface is like totally uneven. Near this place, I think he says. Wow. Starting at this place, you're approaching the Leonberg tunnel. And there typically you are delayed anyway. "60 is announced." Now talking about single release. I moved my brake lever to 20%, and you can see that the brake pressure on the locomotive goes back to 0, even though we don't have brake blending or anything. But the brakes are still on because the brake pipe pressure is not at 5 bars, and that means that all the control valves in the cars that can do multiple release are still braking the train. So, while I was demonstrating the single release brake, we slowed down so much that we are really slow through Ludwigsburg, even though we were able to go with 60. But never mind. Ludwigsburg station is worth the time invested. HB2 with ZS3 cancel for 6. We can still go 60 starting here. This distance signal is for us, even if it is sitting a bit on the switch. And those high rises, they mark the entrance to the Kornwestheim yard. Line speed for the through lines increases here. can be really fast in Kornwestheim station. Repeater. HP2 requirements to go 40. VR2, VR0 obviously, announcing that the next signal will be red. Performance problems are back. I know why I don't open my Twitch feed even after closing it again. It impedes FPS heavily. Kornwestheim Rangierbahnhof. This is what RBF stands for. Shunting station. If you translate it word by word, the meaning is obviously a yard. All right, almost there.